All right. How's it going, everybody? Good to see you today. This is week 2 of our class on financial stewardship with biblical principles. So super excited. You can check, if you missed last week's stream, you can check it out on the River Life Media page on YouTube tonight. Super excited. We've got a special guest who's going to join us for an interview. Gabe, why don't you come on up here? This is Gabe. He is friend of the house. We'll kind of talk about how Gabe and I got to know each other. But first, I just want to show you this video on kind of what Gabe does, and then we'll get into the conversation from there. So,
this is the result now of 7 years of pursuing the creation of the ultimate family dog. A dog that, first of all, is gorgeous. He looks like a real-life teddy bear. He has that low to non-shedding coat with that golden retriever, just absolutely best type of family dog, loves everybody type of personality. Because yes, that's why the golden retrievers are honestly so popular, is because their personality, I mean, yes, they're gorgeous, but their personality, you really can't beat it. They're just absolutely incredible. But I think we can all agree that the shedding is just a little bit too much sometimes. So this little guy right here is the product of 7 years creating and studying genetics to find the absolute best golden doodles, to put them together to create something absolutely incredible like Big Rocky right here. So whenever I'm looking to create a golden doodle, I'm looking at how can I create the absolute best family dog. Is a lot of these dogs are bred for working or some other type of purpose, but I wanted a dog that was bred to be the ultimate family dog, because that's honestly what most families are wanting nowadays in America. They don't want a hard-working dog. They don't want a dog that's gonna be laser, just crazy and wanna work all the time. They just want a dog that's gonna hang out, relax, love people, want to be around you all the time, very low to non-shedding, and is just everything, honestly, that you could look for. I mean, he, first of all, he looks like an actual real-life teddy bear. He has that great wavy type of coat to him, and he just loves people. They have that gorgeous look to them that almost makes them look like a teddy bear, or some people say Chewbacca, which is very true. But I am just looking for the ultimate best friend. Because yes, I mean, we love the working dogs. I have working dogs, hunting dogs, all those types of dogs. Those are great for those jobs. But there's not a lot of dogs that are bred for one job, which is being the ultimate best friend, family dog that can just hang out and relax, but also go out, play with you, maybe go on long walks, go to the coffee shop. Really just the ultimate best friend that can do really anything.
all right. Let's get it out of here. Gabe, thanks for joining us, man.
Of course. Thanks for having me. That's what I do every day, all day. Basically, it's a nonstop thing. I've been blessed to. I started this when I was actually like 15, 16 years old, as just kind of like a little, just fun little thing, and then I was like, okay, there might be something more here, and now we have dogs all across the world. We have from Ice Cube to, different types of celebrities buying dogs and stuff like that, and just because they want the best. So
Amazing. Is it fair to say this is kind of like a passion project for you?
for sure, yeah,
Okay.
it's definitely something that was like I never thought it could be my full-time thing, and then God just kind of opened doors that I didn't even know were there.
Amazing. I definitely want to get into all that stuff. First, I just kind of want to back up. Gabe and I, we've known each other since we were kids. Our parents grew up, like our moms.
Our parents knew each other since
Yeah.
they were kids.
Right, yeah,
And
so-
our grandparents knew each other
That's right.
since they were kids.
Yeah, so our relationship runs deep. We've been hanging out since, playing Cowboys and Indians in the yard, probably.
Yeah,
like,
everything.
Long. So we kind of had the pleasure of growing up together. Talk to me about how like school was for you and just kind of growing up as a kid in Mooresville, North Carolina.
Yeah. Well, I was not very good at school. I in 4th grade went to a place where they like test you for different types of learning disabilities or whatever you want to call it. And I guess we did all these tests, and they said that I had dyslexia, which basically at 4th grade I was like, it was so, my learning, like I could not read so badly that I was like struggling with like Cat in the Hat, like terrible, like just very, I don't know what it was. Now I can read great. I figured out ways of just learning, just because what I realize is it's not that I can't, it's not that I'm like a slower learner or something like that. It's just the way that I comprehend things and digest information is a lot different than most people, which works really good in certain things like this. I can, things that are super easy to me are maybe a little bit more complicated to other people, but I didn't realize this until I have a problem reading something or nothing like that, but then it was pretty hard, and I've really all through school I kind of struggled. It just felt like it's just something's not clicking until I kind of, honestly, once I got out of school, I was like, okay, now I feel like the world kind of came easy to me. School was not very easy to me, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So with school being like not something that came easily to you, where would you say you put like your energy during kind of growing up? What kind of stuff did you like find interest in?
Yeah.
Like hobbies, stuff like that.
I grew up on a farm, so just being outdoors, playing with animals, playing with my friends and stuff like that. That was a very big thing, and I was very obsessive over like I would find one thing, and I would just be very obsessive over if it was like dogs or fishing or some type of hunting or whatever it was. I would like find one thing, and then I would just like completely hone in on that thing, like extremely focused, just like wanted to be really, really good at it, which became very useful because when I decided I wanted to go into doing, business, that's what you have to be able to do, is be very honed in on something and do it consistently over time and have a belief in yourself that you can do it, because business is not as hard as some people think it is. It's just you have to stay consistent at it, and you have to every single day just keep chipping away at the block, and it'll work out.
Amazing, yeah. I love to hear all that. I want to, first of all, I totally forgot to mention the like sort of elephant in the room. Welcome to Gabe, also Sydney as well, who's hanging out here.
Yes.
You all got married like 2 years ago?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Baby on the way.
Yep.
Super exciting.
Yes.
So how did that, you two met in?
We met in like 2022 or something like that, I think.
So the business had already started by that point.
Yeah, I was already breeding dogs. Now, I have another business called the Honey Bed, which is a luxury dog bed brand. I should have put a video up there too, but that's we just started that like almost a year ago, and that's like more of her thing. I kind of had the idea of it always like in the back of my head, like, oh, this would be a cool idea, but I didn't really have like the confidence and like I don't know, I just had a lot of things going on. And then she was always like, when we first started talking and stuff like that, I kind of told her about the idea, and she was always like kind of like bringing it back up. I was kind of like, all right, I don't want to like mess with it just because it's like it's a lot. And she would always keep bringing it up, and now she runs it. So we got it up and going, and that's all her thing. So
that's super cool.
Yeah.
I want to put a pin in that because I think that's worth exploring later. But talk to me about like how the idea for Honey Mountain Kennels started.
Yeah. So Honey Mountain, I'll just even start with the name. So I grew up on a farm. It was called Honey Mountain Farms. It was my grandpa's farm, and it was just kind of like a family farm. Everybody, all of my cousins lived on the farm and everything like that. And I was always really passionate about dogs. I never have ever met somebody that breeds dogs as for a living. That's what they do. I've never really heard of that. I always thought that was maybe like a hypothetical, or that'd be a cool idea, but not actually work. And then fast forward, we actually took a trip to Ohio because my grandpa was very good friends with some Amish people up there, and they were breeding golden doodles, and I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. Like, I'm interested in it. And so he was like, I have these 2 puppies that I'm kind of having a hard time selling. Like, if you want to just take them back with you and try to sell them, that's cool. If they don't sell, I'm actually going to be down in North Carolina, so I can just pick them up by then. By the time I was there for, I think, 4 days with Neil Linker and my grandpa. And by the time we had gotten home, I already had both of them sold. So then I was like, oh, that's cool. And then I was like, all right, well, I've got like $1,000. I'll just pay off my Jeep or whatever, because I needed to pay my Jeep off. And I was like, wait, but what if I bought a dog and then I just had a litter of puppies and then we just kind of go from there? Well, so then I ended up buying a golden retriever puppy from that guy for $1,000. It was the greatest $1,000 I've ever spent in my life. And then it just kind of compounded from there. But it was never like okay, this is what I'm going to do all in, like just go crazy about it. It just kind of like, it was like just a snowball, and it just kind of started getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And so I had a litter of puppies just with the idea of, I could just pay off my Jeep now because I got this, litter of puppies, whatever. And then I was like, well, what if I keep back one dog? And then I kept back one dog, and then it kind of just like started to click a little bit. And then COVID hit, and that was like the best thing ever because everybody was wanting to buy dogs. So I was like, well, this is amazing. So then that's where it really like took off. And then I started doing social media, and that took it to like a worldwide type of thing, where I'm having people flying from all across literally across the country and across the world, getting dogs from me. So I mean, right before we came here, I sent a dog up to the New York. It's literally going right now to the Hamptons. There's like this billionaire getting a dog, so it's just crazy. But that's kind of how it started. And then the social media, we have like 500,000 or 600,000 followers across all the platforms, and that just completely blew things out of the water. And we're just keeping on going. But I think the biggest thing though, because there's a lot of dog breeders out there, there's a lot of people that do what I do. And I think that's the biggest thing for people that are wanting to go out and do something that's, maybe like starting a business or something like that. You don't have to, people think you have to do something completely different. You don't have to do something completely different. You just have to do it really, really good. And so the thing that I realized, when you watched the video, you saw that I was kind of doing one type of dog. I wasn't doing a bunch of different sizes. I wasn't doing a bunch of different breeds. I want some that run really fast, some that run really slow. Like, I wanted one very specific type of dog, and then I try to be the absolute best at breeding that type of dog. So I think that's the biggest thing that I've learned in doing my business is even with the dog beds, we don't have like 50 different types of products. We just have one product literally, and it's literally the highest quality dog bed that you can find on the market. Like, I literally can't find another one that I would choose over it. And then there's a bunch of different covers, that go around the bed. But the biggest thing is whenever I'm trying to do something, I'm trying to be the absolute best at it and not doing it halfway. And I think that's where I learned a business. Like, there's so many people that are just kind of like in the middle and just trying to be just kind of passing time a little bit, if that makes sense. Yeah. And when you take that next leap of faith, there's really some that's where you can kind of separate yourself and people respect that. And I think even when you read the Bible and stuff like that, he even says things like that, where it's like, whatever you do it with your whole heart and do it with all your passions and everything like that.
Yeah, that commitment to excellence, that's 100% a biblical principle. I want to highlight that. And that can apply to whatever you're doing. Like, even if you're still in school or whatever, commitment to excellence and doing whatever that's been given to you the best that you can. Yeah, I mean, that'll preach.
Yeah, and I think even... That's the other thing, because I was even talking to my dad about this, because we always, talk about, it's, like, my biggest thing is find first what you love the most, and then try to figure out how you can make that your full-time job or what you do. Like, if you were going to retire tomorrow, like my brother was like, if you retired tomorrow, what would you do? I'd be like, I'd be doing literally the exact same thing I'm doing right now. Maybe I would do, like, less of it, but it's not so much work, but I'd be doing the same things. But that's the biggest thing. Even if it's working just a normal job, but that's what you love, being a doctor, being a school teacher, being whatever job it is, that's amazing. But the life is too short, and I don't feel like God put us on this earth to just clock in and clock out and not be passionate about what we're doing. And you know what I mean? Now, sometimes there's times in your life where you kind of just need to clock in, just get the paycheck just to get on by. But whenever it comes to like what you're gonna do, I feel like those passions that God has put in your heart, He has put that in your heart for a reason, and that's not just like, something that I really love. Like, no, I feel like God put that in your heart for a real reason, and you should probably pay attention to it and try to capitalize on it. You know what I mean? And take that to the next level.
Yeah. Would you say that finding that passion was an easy process? Was there any sort of exploration that it took for you to get there, or has this sort of been like a lifelong development?
So I think the people around me did a really good job from a little kid on dreaming and like even thinking things that are like you wouldn't, you're like, oh, that's never gonna happen. But like my grandparents would always be like, what do you want to do when you get older? What is your plans? Where do you want to live? What are your goals? And it just kind of started, or even the funny thing of like when you win the lottery, what are you gonna do with all that? You know what I mean? Yeah. And yeah, that's probably never gonna happen, but it's just the mindset of like, what are you wanting to do? What are you, getting that mental thing started in your mind from a little age. So I always had ideas of what I was wanting to do, and I was always watching people around me that were very ambitious and stuff like that, and finding their passions. And so I was always thinking, so it never came too hard to me just because I was always thinking about it from a young age. But, you can always start, even if you're 40 years old and you still are trying to figure out what you want to do. It's never too late, so.
Yeah, I would say, just to kind of hammer home on that, like for me, my journey was very much so going through school. I kind of just, I did school. I didn't really pursue anything with much excellence. I did some drafting classes because I like to play with Legos. So I was like, maybe I can be an engineer. Yeah. I did nursing, went on the nursing track for a couple years and then quickly bailed on that. For a while, I was convinced I was going to be a butcher. That was the thing. But I never really resonated with any of those things. It was just kind of an idea that sounded cool. Mm-hmm. So not until, I would say, quite recently have I actually discovered things that I'm passionate about.
But I will say is the whole thing of trial and error is so beautiful and it's so important.
For sure.
I actually just had a guy call me yesterday and he's like, I'm thinking about starting off and going and doing this thing, and I'm kind of nervous. I have, he's got I think a kid, 1 or 2 kids, and a lot of risks there. And I was like, you know what? I was like, so what's your job? And he told me what his job. I was like, all right, so when this fails, you can always come back to this job. This job's always gonna be here. But that opportunity to go do that thing is not always gonna be there. You think it is, or you hope it is, but it's not. So, going out and seeing if you want to be a nurse and be like, oh heck no, I'm not doing this, or going and trying to be a butcher or whatever it is, or literally anything. Falling on your face that's part of the game. There's so many businesses and little things that I tried to start that completely fell on its face. It's just this one stuck and it worked out. But that whole process, people look at other people and think that they just got it right off the bat and that they never failed, and I think when you get comfortable with not everything not going correctly, that's the best thing you could do. And I think I learned that from a young age because I was not very good at school, and I was really good at having F's on my tests and stuff like that. And I just learned to be it is what it is. Life goes on. Yeah. So then in life, when I would screw up, life goes on. It is what it is. You know what I mean? That's super important.
Yeah. I think there's I don't know what it is. It might be some facet of American culture, or just the way we treat each other. Maybe it's some sort of spiritual thing, but there's just such a fear of failure baked in to I feel like I got a healthy dose of it growing up. I don't know about y'all, just the fear of failure being such a huge disabling thing. Yeah. Is there any trick that you've found to overcoming that and just kind of pushing through, or is it just a go for it?
That's what I was talking to that guy about. Is for me, I like to know what's the worst case scenario. And when you learn what the worst case scenario is, you realize that it's really not that bad. Yeah. So even when I was starting to move out of my parents' house and do my own thing, I was like, okay, so what happens if I move out and everything goes to crap? Okay, I just move back to my parents' house. That's the worst. I mean, I'm already in that. I'm already doing that right now. Right. So I'm like, that's the worst thing that can happen. Or, I even was one time talking to my accountant, and she was like, we were talking about future with finances, and I had some litters not take, and it was getting close or whatever, and she was like, you know what, and maybe you'll have to eat some rice and beans a few weeks or something like that. Yeah. You're gonna be okay. Right. And when you realize that, and I never had to, everything was okay, but when you realize what the worst case scenario is, it's really not that bad. Yeah. Most of the time. Sometimes it is bad. Maybe you should be a little scared, and that's just part of it. But a lot of times people have this notion that it's going to be a lot worse, or even when I started my social media, that's a really big thing, is people are so scared to post on social media because they're so scared of what other people think. And when you realize that like nobody really cares about what you're posting as much as you think they are, and nobody's like keeping tallies on what you're posting or
Right.
how many views and likes it gets, I'm like, just go and post it. And it does not matter. Like one of my things is I'm like, you're not Taylor Swift. Like you don't have people following you around like caring about
nobody's
it.
gonna see it.
Yeah. So when you realize that the risk that you're taking is not actually that big of a risk, and in your mind you're hyping it up as it is, it makes it feel a lot. I don't know. For me personally, it makes me feel a lot better.
Yeah, that's legit. And I think we have such an advantage as Christians, like knowing, being assured in Christ and all the things that he provides for us. Like, really, the worst case scenario for us is significantly less than the worst case scenario for other folks who are trying to make it on their own. So I think that's a great opportunity for us to really press in and move forward without fear, because we've got God at our back.
Yeah, and talking to God and using your discernment and like reading the Bible and really just getting very personable with God. I think that's like one of the biggest things, and following what he has for your heart or for your life. You know what I mean? I think also growing up, I saw my parents move 2.5 hours away or 2 hours away and start a church from nothing. Yeah. So I think, there's a huge risk right there, but it was in God's plan and it was meant to be, you know what I mean? And so you can, I think that kind of gave me a little bit more confidence when I was starting my own thing, but really being able to know what God has planned for you and moving with God, because at the end of the day too, this was completely God, and things just kind of, the doors opened for me. I just had to step through them.
Wow.
And there's a lot of times where people do get doors open for them, but they don't step through them. So it's very important that you see those opportunities and you step through them. And maybe you step through one and then the next door just shuts in your face and you walk back out that door and go to the next one. You know what I mean? And that's fine. And you're going to be okay. Like there's, you know what I mean? Even though it doesn't work out perfectly, doesn't mean there was a failure to it. You know what I mean? So it's just the next step.
That's really cool. I do want to sort of pivot there and talk more about the mingling of like being a Christian and also being a business owner, or kind of working towards this sort of big goal. Was there ever a tension that you felt between like what you wanted to do and what you felt God was doing? Or was it always just like in step?
Yeah. Sometimes I did feel like, okay, like, is this for God or is this for me? Or am I supposed to be out like my brother's in South Africa, like, evangelizing or something like that? Like, is that what I'm supposed to go do? And I always felt like, I don't know, I just feel like in me personally, like I feel like there's something in my heart that you just know when it's right or wrong. And it always did feel more like this is what was working. It was just meant to be, if that makes sense.
Sure.
And I also think that there were so many relationships and families that I got to meet and even share the gospel with, or just show God through what I'm doing with them, that it's always felt like this is the right path to be going down. And, you meet so many people. I actually have a dog that's going to be a service dog. They're coming actually tomorrow to pick up the dog, and then they're going to train him up. They do it for like veterans and stuff like that. But even being able to pursue and stuff like that is just, beautiful. And I feel like it's really what God has for me. You know what I mean?
Dude, that's amazing. What's it been like sort of dealing with the concept of like all for the glory of God? Do you feel like you've gotten to a good spot with that?
Yeah, like you meaning like everything.
Just everything you do for the glory of God,
100%.
Yeah.
But that's where I get back to like the excellence part of things, because Jesus was a carpenter, and all those people were fishermen, and all the different types of jobs. Just because you're doing something that's like not directly like going out and evangelizing every single day in the streets doesn't mean you can't evangelize in what you're doing. You know what I mean? So I think people do think that like if you're not being a pastor or something like that, you're not as like important or something like that. Well, at least, and maybe people don't think that. That's how I feel sometimes. But I have realized, and I have struggled with it, but now I've figured it out, or I kind of figured it out a little bit, that that's not true. You know what I mean? Like, Jesus was a carpenter, and fisherman and all that, and you can work. God is strong enough and good enough to use you in those things. He doesn't need you to go do all those things sometimes. So I feel like coming and understanding that, and then seeing the opportunities that he would line up through what I'm doing with talking to families and, doing all that was very eye-opening to me.
Yeah. Man, praise the Lord. He doesn't need us to do anything because I'd be in trouble. But that's so true, right? Because God said, "This is my beloved son," before Jesus stepped into ministry. So it's not like an earn it kind of thing.
Yeah.
We love grace around here.
And you can always, I think there's always times where you can use your work to be, doing God's work too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
have you found that, this is not necessarily super related, but have you found opportunities to like be witness to people in the process of this like business thing, people you've met?
100%. Because there's something crazy about the nature and animals and stuff like that, and the way that it kind of shows God, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Just because of their nature, and from watching puppies being born and watching whenever a dog has their first litter of puppies and they literally know how to do everything, and nobody sat down and like, okay, so you do this, 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 and this, and they're like, they just know it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And explaining that to people because they're so like dumbfounded, like this is wild that they know, and and it's almost like people, whenever you're explaining it to people, they kind of understand. You kind of see the click in their eyes where it's like there's something deeper here, and then I'll put in that God thing real quick.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? And then they're really starting to agree with you because it's like there's so much more to this earth than what we just see.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's very special.
That's amazing. Do you feel like you've been able to like partner with God in a way in this endeavor?
100%. Yeah.
That's cool. Well, speaking of partners, I want to go back to you and Sydney working together. How has that process? So you guys kind of started in your relationship talking about this sort of joint venture. How has that process unfolded now that you're like married and with a kid on the way? Like, has that changed at all? What's it been like? We're all like, this is young adults, so I think the relationship advice is on topic too.
Yeah, I think the hardest thing is separating.
Yeah.
When you're always working, and then separating it, and having, I would just say, a lot of like date nights and going on walks and stop talking about business and stuff like that. And also just not putting too much pressure on anything too. I think sometimes you just got to say it is what it is. You know what I mean? If business is good, if business is bad, you can't take life too serious. I think people take stuff way too serious sometimes.
Sure.
And you just kind of have to go with the flow with with things. And I go back to the thing with what's the worst thing that can happen. Whenever you can just know what's the worst thing you can happen, you realize it's even getting married. I think some people just get so scared of what like, okay, I'm gonna get married to this person. Like what if this happens, or what if that happens, or what if we get divorced, or what if that's all very could happen things. But if you always live in fear of something happening, you'll never move in. You'll never go anywhere.
Yeah.
So I think that's a really big thing, and just always keeping God in the center. You know what I mean? And everybody says that, and it's like, oh, that's like the most obviously we know that. But when you actually live your life, and that's very important to you, and I think that's a huge difference there.
That's great.
But I think also the other thing, like we've been blessed with finances and stuff like that, and being able to take those finances and helping out other people and seeing how blessed those people are, and how it just helps them out, or if there's something in church where they need finances or something like that, or even in Uganda we've helped build a few houses over there and stuff. Like the ability that God has really given us to help do things like that is just incredible.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think that's really something that we've been really trying to pursue, is finding new endeavors that we can really help the kingdom of God and grow it. And so,
wow.
Yeah, that's something we take seriously.
That's awesome. I would say that's what it's all about. I
100%.
think like our mission on this earth is to be the hands and feet of Jesus. So if you're in a position like y'all are to be, to have to have, like Dean was talking about, the gift of giving. Being able to make money so that you can give it away. That's awesome.
And
dude.
okay, I'm obviously not at this level, but the way I kind of think is I hate for money. I think growing up in my life, I've always seen where money has been a huge limiter. It's like, what if we ever had this? If we could have this, we could really do so much more here, there, whatever. And I think that's one of my biggest passions is not letting that be a limiter. Like, I'm not thinking about can we afford it. It's just how can we do it.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But also when you have that mindset, sometimes you can afford things, but then you have to figure out how can you, bring in more money here or there, whatever, to afford it.
Yeah.
Because whenever you talk to people that are highly, highly successful, money's never the problem. But it's not because they're just so wealthy. It's just because they never let that be a barrier, if that makes sense. Some people, they say, oh, I can't afford it or whatever, and that's just, and they never turn the page or they never try to figure it out from there. And so I think, if you talk to very highly successful people in the kingdom, you know what I mean? They're always thinking of new ways to figure out how to get the job done.
That's amazing.
So
yeah, totally.
I think that's always been a big passion of mine.
That's awesome. I want to circle back on something you said earlier, which was to take what you love and make it your full-time job. Mm-hmm. I've heard some people say that kind of the opposite, like not to find your fulfillment in work, but to instead like do what you need to do to get by and then be fulfilled elsewhere. What would your take be on that idea?
I look at it as like it's all like just a lifestyle, if that makes sense. So 100%, work and chasing money should never be your full thing. Like whenever I'm doing things, I'm doing it first because I love it,
right?
And because it's like serving the purpose in my life as a whole. And then I figure out how can I also make some money to where I can continue to keep doing this.
Yeah.
Versus like if you go work some job and then you have your thing that you really want to just spend all your time doing. But what if the thing that you want to be spending all your time, if you feel like this is what you've been called to do or something like that, can also be something that pays your bills.
Yeah.
So even if it's, if you want to be a evangelist and go all over the world, I literally know people that are doing social media, showing what they're doing, and then they're making enough money to pay their bills. Or there's a lot of pastors that write books, and that just helps them to where they can continue to do what they want to do or what they feel like they need to be doing, and God is calling them to, but at 110%, you're all in. That's literally your entire life. Versus like when you have to go work a job, now you're pulling away some of that effort.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So I try to keep I'm a very obsessive person, and I like to keep all of my effort in one thing versus doing a whole lot of things. I'm not saying that everything that I say is what you should do, but I'm just saying the way that I feel is very good for, works good for me. And even if you watch the life of Jesus and the way that he moved, I mean, I think there was something, he was walking like a marathon a day, like 25 or 26 miles or 24 miles.
Yeah.
Every single day. Like when he was all in, like that man was all in. Like you're not, I'm sorry, I'm all in. You know what I mean? And even, some people even talk about social media and like, Jesus would never be on social media, or not letting social media be your idol or anything like that, which I 100% agree with. But the thing that I love so much about social media in a positive light is whenever you looked at Jesus' life, he was always trying to go to places that was most viewed so that he could share the good news to as many people as he could. He was going to, the what do they call, like the town, not the town square, but the places where everybody was at, basically.
Well, I mean, temples and marketplaces.
Marketplaces and stuff like that. Well, nowadays, people are on social media. That's
right.
where everybody's at, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying that social media should never be your idol. It's just a tool. It's just a tool to just grow whatever your, you know what I mean, your goals, and to grow really. I mean, I know, I don't know Bryce Hall very, very well. I've met him a few times, but the things that he's doing on social media is just incredible. You know what I mean? And all the things that he's being able to expand, or not Bryce. What is it, Bryce? What's his name? Bryce.
I mean, I don't know. There's a lot of Bryces.
I just forgot his name. But, you know, there's so many different people that are being able to use social media to really grow the kingdom of God. So, you know, there's a lot there.
Yeah, I mean, that might be antiquated advice. The whole concept of like having your job and then having your side hustle or like your hobby or whatever, because there's so many ways to make money in the world we live in now.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So it'll take work for sure.
But the other thing is too, I don't believe that there's one way to do any of it. You know what I mean? So if you really feel like working a job, and then, because also that's the other thing that I've learned with having dyslexia, is the way that I think and the way that I process and the way that I work is a little bit different than most people.
Sure.
So some people really need a job, and then they need their other thing, and they need to be able to separate the two things, because that just is that's what makes them feel the best. That's how they can kind of rest here and work here and stuff like that. They need them separated. Yeah. Some people, with me, like my work and my life is all kind of intermingled.
Right.
So whatever works best for you, that's what works. So I don't think that if one person does one way, everyone else has to. You know what I mean? I think that's really important to kind of understand there.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's awesome. If you had, I think recognizing that it's going to be different for everybody, 100%. Like there's a lot of different ways to, what is it, make an omelet or skin a cat?
Skin a cat.
That's the one. Yeah, there it is. Yeah. Yeah. So don't feel like you need to do exactly what Gabe did. Like you can figure it out. If you had to give some advice to someone who was trying to pursue their passion, but maybe felt like there were some barriers in the way. I mean, I don't know. Just generally speaking, if you had to give some advice to people who are trying to pursue their passions, what would that be?
One of my favorite parts of the Bible is where Solomon, he's like, I'll give you, God's like, I'll give you anything. And he asked for wisdom. He could ask for money. He could ask for running fast or being strong or whatever the heck he wanted. Yeah. But he asked for wisdom. And I think whenever I'm praying, and I'm like really trying to figure out, okay, you're like, how do you know if you're doing something right, or all these things? I'm constantly asking and praying for wisdom. Wow. Because when you have the wisdom, everything else, you'll figure everything else. Everything else will come. Yeah. And so I think that's the biggest thing, is asking God for wisdom and praying and really studying the Bible in those parts of the Bible where Solomon is at, growing and being all those things that he was, and learning what he did right and what he did really wrong and all those things. Yeah. I really think that's the biggest thing, because when you have wisdom and I love to talk to older people and learn where they messed up in life and where they succeeded in life, and kind of like, okay, I'm going to take that part. I'm definitely not going to do that part. Yeah. And I really like to learn that. And then also I love to find people in whatever endeavor I'm in, find some somewhat successful people in those realms, and then like become best friends with them. Okay, yeah. Because that will give you the confidence that you don't have, if that makes sense. You'll get to know those people and realize that they're not really that much more special than you or anything like that. They just were really good at staying consistent or something like that. Yeah. And I think that's a really big part of the key that I have been able to do. And like even when I started doing my breeding dogs, there's a guy that helped me, because when I started, I was like, no, but you can't do this as like a thing. It's just, I've never heard of that. Yeah. And then I got to know him, and I'm like, oh, this is very much possible, and I kind of got confidence from that. And then just staying in the Word, and if it doesn't feel like it's not, if this is not like, once you've come to peace with it, you know what I mean? Like I feel like there's something really there with listening to how you're feeling in the peace, and even reading the Bible and trying to find in the Bible where like, what you're doing, it kind of aligns, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's amazing. I don't have anything else on my list. Is there anything you want to cover before we open up to questions?
I think the wisdom thing is like just another thing. I just keep wanting to hammer that down. Like praying for wisdom is every single day. I'm like, I need more of this, more of this, more of this, because that's such a big part of life. Even if you're not even being an entrepreneur, it's just anything in life. Like wisdom is the most. Yeah, that's a big part. So,
yeah.
But yeah, that's all.
Questions, Jacob?
So along the same lines of this, when you were getting into the social media stuff, did Judah help you out at all with any wisdom?
Yeah, he did, but
Can you repeat the question in the mic so that
Oh, yeah.
can hear too?
So when you were getting into social media, it was probably a new thing for you. Did you have your brother Judah? Did you get wisdom from him? Did he help you out?
Yeah, for sure. He helped me a lot with like doing high quality videos and pictures, but when it comes to like the marketing side of like how to correctly do it, I actually went to Passion Conference, which is like a Christian conference or whatever, and there was a lot of people there that also do social media, and kind of talking to them and becoming friends with people that just did social media, and then you kind of learn. That's where I learned a lot, and learned honestly that the biggest thing to social media is just staying consistent and posting as much as possible. That was the biggest key. So
That's great. Any other questions? I'm just going to repeat these. Yeah, Dean?
When you're dealing with the puppies and
Yeah.
selling the puppies, do you always have puppies to sell, or is that like in a cycle? And based on that answer, how do you work your cash flow as far as budgeting if there are the feast times and the famine times? How do you budget that in your business?
For the sake of the online audience, what's your process on keeping puppies, your cycle for business, and then how do you budget going forward and sort of set a forecast for your business cycles?
So when I started off, I kind of had like 2 periods in the year, because a dog cycles twice a year, so she'll have 2 litters a year, and I didn't have as many dogs, so it was more that way. Nowadays, there'll be like month or 2 gaps where I don't have puppies, but it's more common now. I have quite a few puppies kind of always cycling through. But when it comes to the cash flow stuff, I mean, I was never like super calculated with it, but I did know what I did like know my expenses and stuff like that, and I would always try to keep about 6 months, about 5-6 months of cash that I like would need to live on in my bank account.
Mm-hmm.
Because with the dogs, it's like, you get paid a large amount when the puppies go home, but then you might go 2-3 months or 4 months or 5 months or whatever without nothing. So that's kind of how I kind of helped gauge that, is kind of keeping about 6 or so, more or less, sometimes about 6 though, months of finances in my, accessible, if that makes sense, to where I could get to it. And that, everybody's different. Some people like to live paycheck to paycheck and ride the line, but the biggest thing to me with finances is I love the peace of mind. I just like to have the peace of mind, and just knowing that, I can make decisions, and even if something does maybe not go quite as planned, I do have backup, and knowing that everything's going to be okay. So I like to have about 6 months.
That's great. That's probably good advice. I'm sure Dean will cover this later in the series, but just like any investment ventures or like startups or projects that you're doing, just having that safety net, and like probably security fund too and stuff like that. But
for sure, I would say that's the biggest thing. I know people that risk it all constantly. I can't do that.
Yeah, that
I
sounds
need
insane.
a little bit of. I like to have a little bit of a safety net.
Yeah.
And keep my expenses as low as possible.
Sweet.
But yeah,
Awesome.
that's what I do.
Any other questions? Also, if anyone on the live chat, Anna.
So you were saying, like, when you were growing up, you had a lot of like passions that you pursued and you went all in. What advice would you give to people that don't feel like they have passions to pursue?
For the sake of the live stream. what would you say to anyone who feels like they don't have strong passions leaning one way or another?
Yeah. I would ask you, like what my brother asked me, if you were going to retire today, what would you do? And you might say nothing. But I would just keep diving into things that really perk your interest and keep, the other thing is like, if you've never heard somebody be a professional in that area or something like that, that's fine. If you've never heard of somebody, if it's weird and different and stuff like that, that's completely okay. Or if it's super basic and everybody does it, that's also completely okay.
Yeah.
But I would just keep pursuing and talking to God. I think that's a really big one, and really thinking like, okay, what really, like, what do I'm starting to kind of like go to sleep thinking about and waking up thinking about.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then think, okay, what are maybe some career paths in this way that I could, do what I love.
Yeah.
And that's the way I would look at it. What are you spending your most, if you have a free day, I want to go to the beach. Well, literally, I know people that get paid to literally travel the world, go to beaches, and do social media. Like, it sounds crazy, and it sounds like, how in the world is that possible? But even the most simplest things that feel like this is not a job, you'd be very surprised.
Yeah.
That's like, I was, when I started breeding dogs, it's, I don't know anybody. I mean, now that I breed dogs, I know people that do it, but before then I didn't know anybody who was doing it. And I would literally have people come up to me and be like, okay, so I know you're doing this, but like, have you thought about like a career? And I was like, well, this is my career, you know what I mean? And so, and now it's a very established career, and because I believed in myself, now everybody's like, oh, that was a smart idea.
Yeah.
But when you start something that's not very common and people look at you a little bit weird, that's totally fine. You know what I mean? And be confident, because in order for people to believe in you, you have to first believe in yourself. And so I think that's very important. And you even see that in the Bible. Like, if Jesus just came to earth and was just like, yeah, I think I'm kind of Jesus, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not, I don't know about that, you know what I mean? So when you look at the confidence that Jesus had when he was on this earth, and you see all the things that he did with authority, and he was very like, this is what it is. Well, you can, it says be like Jesus. I mean, you can use those things. You can be like Jesus in those ways of being confident in the things that you do, being confident in the things that you're passionate about. I think there's some people that have passions. I'm not saying everybody's this way, but have passions, but they're not confident in their passions, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? So being confident, like doing things that are not normal. You know what I mean? And that's another thing is, I think people try to stay in the box of society, and like, Jesus was not in the box of society at all. Like that, they literally killed him because of that. Like he wasn't following the rules, and that's okay.
I think it's so. I mean, to speak on it for a second, like, if God put that passion in you, then you should pursue it. I think
100%.
there is, just to kind of back to the question, like, there's probably an amount of self-reflection that goes into finding your passions.
For sure.
For me, it was a long process of like, some just like exploring my own, like, what am I actually interested in doing that's for me and not like for other people, because that's something I struggle with a lot. Like, how much do I like just helping people because I'm an Enneagram 2, and how much do I like actually like this thing? But then also like pray about it. Like, Lord, what are the desires of my heart? Would you reveal those to me?
And when you find desires and then like 6 months later you don't have that desire, that's fine. Like, you don't have to, just because you have a desire to, and I even up here saying like, oh, find what you desire and then like go all in on it. But that can take some time, and when you find something you think is kind of cool and then you fall on your face and you're like, that was a total failure, that's also completely okay. Like, you don't have to be perfect, and that's kind of the art of like figure out what you want to do. You know what I mean? And being okay sometimes working a job and just collecting that paycheck. That's also completely okay, because sometimes there's periods in your life where you have to do that. But I even remember working a job where I was like, oh my gosh, I'm like looking at these people that have been working here for 15 years. And
Yeah.
me personally, I do not want to do that. I
Yeah.
mean, so if that's what they want to do, that's cool. But I was just like, I don't want to do this. And I remember one guy I was talking to, he's like, that's okay. Like, this is, I'm not doing that either. But think about this job as like a stepping stone.
Yeah.
He was like, you're only allowed here to be here for 2 years. After 2 years, like, I'm about to leave, you better
Wow.
leave too.
Okay,
And that was a really big, like, whatever you're doing, just set a goal. Just writing down, okay, I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to do this. Like, I'm going to work this job for this amount of time. Even if you work it for a little bit longer or a little bit shorter or whatever, and things don't go to plan, but just having ideas of what you want to do with your life, and just having somebody that you can sit here and like, I want to do this or that, or just, I call it rough draft thinking.
Sure.
Rough draft thinking is like the most important thing that you could do. I mean, the amount of rough draft businesses that never
Right.
became
Yeah,
anything
yeah.
that I thought about, but then that one hits. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? And it's just a numbers game
Yeah.
of scribbling enough and throwing the paper away and then going and something scribbles out correctly. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So.
Wow, that's good. Yeah, I love that rough draft thinking. That's a good idea. Shout out mentors also, probably a good resource. You know, find someone who you can bounce stuff off of and just be a sounding board.
For sure.
Yeah.
I think that's really big. And like I said with rough draft thinking is don't take, I mean, yeah, the things that you say should be pretty serious and you should mean a lot of things, but also don't take too much of what you're saying too seriously.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I would always, like I'll just say in high school, like I really wanted to be a professional bodybuilder. That was like what I was all in on, like until I was like, oh, I got to take steroids. I'm not doing that. All right, never mind. But one of my teachers like literally sat me down and was like I'm not kidding, this has actually happened. He's like, you'll never be a bodybuilder. Like you need to find a path that's like normal. Like just completely grilled me, and I'm like, dude, I'm just trying to be passionate about something.
Yeah,
Like I'm
yeah,
just
yeah.
over here like excited to just do something with my life. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But when people and guess what? I'm not a professional bodybuilder, and that's fine.
Right.
But I put everything into something for a period of time in my life, and that the things that you learn from working hard at something and sticking to something is even when it doesn't go as planned, you can always take those tools and apply it to something else in your life. And just because you didn't become the greatest ever at whatever, shooting for the stars or shooting for the moon and landing on the stars is a whole lot higher if you never shot. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah. That's great. Do you feel like we answered that? We kind of rambled a lot. Do you feel like sick? Any other questions? Yeah, Lainey.
So I'm gonna be a senior next year, and everyone wants me to pick what I'm gonna do. You talked about having like a fallback option, like what people would call like an actual job, but then also finding your passion. What would you suggest for someone who's trying to pick, like, what should I start with?
For the live stream audience. When deciding like future paths, especially as you know you're like moving from big transition points, whether that be like high school to college or like college out into the workforce, how do you decide on which option to choose between like pursuing your passion as a career or setting up a fallback first?
So the reality is you have to have money to like live in this
Right.
world, right?
Yeah.
So the way I look at it is, okay, like if you need something that's gonna pay, if you have the ability to like maybe live with your parents a little bit longer, but you're working very, very hard to like on that passion or whatever, and you're wanting to move out and stuff like that, it's 100% okay to live with your parents a little bit longer. Like this whole hypothesis that you have to move out as soon as you graduate is not like, you don't have to do that.
Yep.
Now, yeah, you definitely need a plan to like move out.
Right.
But if you have to move out or you still have to have some type of income, it's okay to work that job. And then that's where I was saying, like my friend at the job I worked at was like 2-year plan. Like after these 2 years, you got to move on. So I would say, if you have to work a job that is not the job that you want to work forever, that's completely okay.
Yep.
While you're also like mastering your craft or having a plan to do what you want to do. But I think the biggest thing is just going through life with a plan.
Yeah.
And if you don't 100% hit that plan, it's okay, but just having an idea of like a direction with your life is so, you'd be actually surprised how when you write that plan, it's almost like your life is just going that way. And it's not like every single day you're waking up like thinking about the plan, but it's just like the whole idea of having that in the back of your mind of like, this is the plan that I'm kind of going towards. is so big. So writing down like your goals and dreaming big. Like I said, like growing up, my grandparents were always like, thinking about like helping me just dream in my life.
Yeah.
And I think dreaming, and then you realize that your kind of life just starts to go towards those dreams. So that's what I would say with that is like, have a plan.
Yeah.
And if you have to work a little job or whatever, that's completely okay. You know what I mean? Like that's part of the plan.
That's part of it. Yeah.
As you go there. Now, if you have the ability to put all your eggs in already in whatever you want to do, or if that means going to college and not having to work, or not going to college and doing whatever you want to do, that's great too. But if you have to work another job, you're not behind at all. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I also want to mention sometimes God does stuff, and that sort of derails your plans. So to like use my father as an example, he got out of college and was like really passionate about going into ministry, and he felt like this call from the Lord on his life. He actually stepped away from what he wanted to do. He wanted to go to California and be an actor, but God called him into ministry. And so he spent some years pursuing that, and then like sort of hit a dead end. And so then he developed this career, but over the process of doing that career, he developed all the skills to where now he's the head pastor of our Wilmington branch.
Yep.
So sometimes like there's a reality that your dreams get deferred, but God's got you in all that.
Yeah,
so,
and everybody's timeline is different.
Yeah, for sure.
Like just because you're not perfectly doing everything like everyone else around you, doesn't mean that that's not okay. Like it's okay to not do everything. Like I think that's the problem that I kind of had a little bit with school, is they kind of try to fit everybody into one font of person, and it's like everybody does the exact same things all together, and you go to school and you go to class, everything's on the same time frame.
Right.
And then when you get into the real world, you realize that life is, some people go a little bit different.
Yeah.
But it doesn't make it wrong or right. It's up to, God's plan. And that's why that's why I was even saying with my passion of, I do kind of my passion full time, that's what I do, but that doesn't make it right or wrong. It's just the biggest thing is doing what you feel, is right. And if you feel like I would like it to be, I feel like God's calling me to another sector or whatever, like take that leap of faith. You know what I mean?
That's great. Any other? Yeah, Jacob and.
I just wanted to add on to what y'all were saying. Pretty much the same thing to answer her question.
Oh, are you going to answer a question?
Well, just.
Do you want the microphone?
No. You can repeat. But something that our boss has said that maybe he got from a mentor is like the plan itself is not as valuable as the planning. The planning is invaluable.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a I think a General Sherman quote or something is plans are useless, but planning is invaluable.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's where I was like, even with like bodybuilding or whatever, like obviously I shot for the moon. Obviously I decided not to do that.
Right.
But and some people would look at that and be like, that's a complete and total waste of my time because I put so much time and effort in like my life of like 6 years into that, right?
Yeah.
But all of the things that I learned from it and the tools that I took away from it, I'm using that for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so it's like what you said, like the plans, the where you end up is not really the goal.
Right.
It's the journey of getting there. Because see, there's a lot of people that are very highly successful, multimillionaire, billionaire people that they get to this certain amount or they have a certain amount in their bank account.
Yeah.
And they realize that they planned to get there and they got there, and then they're like, wait, this is kind of like not fulfilling. Like I'm not happy.
Yeah.
But the planning and all of it that's where the gold's at. You know what I mean?
That's great. Thomas, you had a question?
All right, so I know because I work for a big company, and retirement-wise, I know it's important to start thinking younger. How would that look with not having a big corporation and having a 401k or any of that? Do you just set money aside, or what is more of your plans for preparing for that?
for the sake of retirement, or for the sake of the live stream.
Yeah.
How do you plan effectively for retirement without like a corporation matching 401k or like sort of those pre-existing tools helping you out?
So you can, I have 401k and all those different types of things that I do have. Obviously, it's not like, this is not what I'm depending on in my life, but definitely the next thing I'm going to move into is kind of like starting to invest in real estate and other things like that. And then another thing with companies, like if you're building a company, if you wanted to, if you wanted to keep working in your, company, or if you decide you wanted to build your own company, I know a lot of people that still own their company, but when you've been working when you've been building a business for 40 years, 30 years, 20 years, it becomes a very well-oiled machine.
Yeah.
And then it gets to the point where the more money you make, the easier it is to keep making it, or at least, money compounds a little bit. So you can then create, I actually know a guy, I used to work out with him a lot, and he's like, yeah, I started a business, and it was a marketing business, and our first company was this startup company called Google. Yeah, so he helped do a lot of marketing for Google and getting on his feet. Well, now he still owns the business, but he has a guy that runs it for him.
Okay.
So I think for me personally, that's my biggest thing, is starting companies and then having, as I get older and stuff like that, just hiring people to do a lot of the work for me, which is still bringing me in income. And then you have, real estate that you can invest in and then, cash out on and stuff like that. And then, like I said, the more money that you make, when you're like starting your company, you're kind of scrounging for money, and you're trying to get more and more and more. But then, like, your business starts to sell itself. And as you've been doing it for a lot of times, and you have people around that have bought from your company, and then they start to come back, it becomes a little bit easier, at least in my experience.
Yeah.
So I think that's my biggest thing is learning that. And then you also learn formulas on how to start new companies, and usually the second and third and fourth and stuff like that, it kind of becomes, it's like riding a bike a little bit. It comes a little bit easier than when you're first starting off. Nobody knows your name, they don't know who you are,
right?
And it just so
nice. Yeah, and my guess is Dean's gonna have some really good practical advice on some of that stuff too
100%.
Later in the series. So great. Anything else? Awesome. Well, that's good timing because the U.S. games just started. So go Team USA. Thanks, Gabe, so much for coming out.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, what a pleasure to have you. So tune in to the rest of our series. We'll be here every Monday. Next week will be VBS week, so we'll be here. It'll just be much more colorfully decorated back here. But otherwise, see y'all when we see you.